Welcome to The Spotlight, the podcast where veterans and military spouses connect and share how their military experience has transformed their lives and their businesses. Here's your host, Bob Louthan.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthan, founder of the VeteranCrowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into The Spotlight. Well, hey, everyone. Welcome. Our guest today is an Army veteran from Indianapolis, actually grew up in the Carolinas, though I think Drew Everett is one of the co-founders of Apex Gear Company, a marketplace made by veterans for everyone. You've got some pretty cool stuff out there. Drew, thank you for joining us. Thanks for stepping into the spotlight.
I appreciate you having me on, Bob.
So you and another guy named Nick Wyatt, longtime friends, I understand, founded this company. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Nick and how long y'all have known each other. I want to talk a little bit about the Army, and then we're going to get into the business.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Nick and I grew up together in North Carolina. I've known him since I was in fifth grade. He was a year behind me, and lived in the same neighborhood, all the same friends, grew up playing in the woods and skipping school sometimes, and just all that kind of getting into everything, running all over the place. And I went into the Army after high school. He went into the Marine Corps, but we both stayed in touch, and we'd do get-togethers when we could, and all that kind of stuff. And so we kind of spread out over time, but we always came back together. And so it's I think it's been 25 years now that we've known each other. And one of those things, we've just always wanted to go into business together, and we finally had an opportunity. So,
did you guys, have the little inner branch rivalry, insulting each other?
Yeah, it was funny. No, we didn't have so much of that. We always, we always screw with each other anyway, and all that kind of stuff. But the funny thing was, when I joined kind of a peacetime Army, like 01 to. Well, I joined before 9/11. Yeah. And I was in a European unit, and we didn't deploy, that unit didn't deploy until after I was already out. So, we did training and things like that, but they stayed in their greens the whole time I was in. And then Nick joined in 06, I think, 6 to 10. And so my drill sergeants, I think I had a couple that were in Mogadishu, right, in the Black Hawk Down event, but otherwise none of them had been seen any combat. Contrast that with Nick, that's all combat, hardened combat veteran, Marines coming back. So the funny thing is I was always just trying to understand. We're both in the infantry. Theoretically, we had the same job, but the things that I was trained, how I was trained and trained on, and all that compared to his experiences, I think I spent most of my time just asking him questions, after I got
it's really, I never really thought about that before. It would be really interesting to have the two of you on and to compare and contrast a little bit about that.
Oh, different. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how did, have you guys been serial entrepreneurs? You started Apex 3 or 4 years ago now? When did
Yeah, it's funny. We started Apex about 2.5 years ago. It had a different mission. It was a product-based company. His dad invented a thing. It's a shoe insert. It's like an orthotic insole, but it can be mass manufactured and all that stuff. And his dad was actually in the Navy. But so growing up together, they had a shoe repair business and a like podiatrist shop. People would come in, all types of foot problems, things like that, fix them up. And we were guinea pigs for these shoe insoles growing up, all the kids in the neighborhood. I mean, we've worn all the different design generations and all that stuff. And it was just one of those things I never really thought much of. And when his dad talked about retiring, kind of had a moment where, hey, well, what are you doing with the insoles? Could we make a website? Could we create a brand? Could we try to sell some online? Could that be like a side business? And so that's kind of how we got. It's just this old legacy business, this family business that we wanted to kind of transition into a modern digital brand. And that's kind of how we put our toes in the water, learned everything that there is that goes on with e-commerce and web development. And we did that. And then along the way, we were approached by another veteran actually, who had a complementary product, and he wanted to kind of put the products together on the website. And we didn't know, that was another new layer of complexity, right? We had, not the first idea on how to do that. And it's really, that was kind of the genesis of what we have with the marketplace today. It seems kind of crazy, but it went from single product based company having nothing to do with a marketplace to one person wanting to do something a little bit different or extra on the site. And then that thought experiment on how to make it possible, how to, listen, none of us want to hold the inventory, right? But none of us want to deal with the customer service. What about, how do you pay each other out? All those kind of things. And we wanted to automate it because the concern is, well, what if in 6 months another guy comes along and wants to add something to the site, right? And it's thinking through this, through this kind of this process where we had the light bulb moment of, hey, wait a minute, like bigger picture. What if there was a website that had all veteran brands, all veteran products, everything like Amazon, same experience? Is that a problem we're solving? And that's kind of how we got into what we're doing today. And we obviously shopped that idea around a lot before we committed to trying to pull it off. And the feedback was overwhelming, and we were told if we think we can do it, then to go do it. So
you now in just 2.5 years, right? You're telling me you've gone from orthotics and inserts to all of this broad product line. I mean, there's camping gear and sports equipment, men's and women's apparel, hats, the whole 9 yards, right?
Yeah. I mean, the shoe insoles are still on the website, but yeah. So we found a way. We found a way to leverage the technology and build it and design it so that we can tap into the inventory streams of other veteran-owned businesses' websites, right? So we sign them up, right? We reach out, we tell them what we're doing, if they're interested in joining, and we onboard them. And we're not a warehouse, we're not fulfilling. They're fulfilling the orders natively, like they're already doing today. The order notification goes straight into their system when you check out on Apex. And we wanted to do a bunch of things with that. There's other websites out there where you can buy things, but you can't put a bunch of different things from different people into one cart. And obviously,
I literally go on your site and pick one thing from one vendor and one from another and buy them all at once.
All at once. Yeah.
Got it.
We wanted to provide an Amazon-like experience because that's what people are accustomed to. That's what they expect. And we didn't want to have to kind of downgrade from that. So, and then the complexity that we had to solve for was those orders have to go get routed to their respective vendors. They've got to fulfill, the tracking has to come through to the customer. And then everybody has to get paid out, right?
So you're really a technology company, right? Hey, how do you screen these companies, these candidates that want to participate in this? And you say they're all veteran-owned, veteran-led businesses.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So how we started doing that was in the early days, it was referrals. So we knew some different people, at different companies, and then we would tap their networks, right? And so it's a trust-based thing. We always spend time with them, getting to know them before we get them on the site. We want to hear their story, not only their military background, tell some jokes and some stories, and then learn about their business too. So it's important for us to get a really good sense of who these people are. It's very trust-based. We are working on more technical ways to kind of verify, military service background. We don't have those incorporated yet because it's still a very hands-on thing that we're doing. So it's all about relationships really right now at this point. I think in the future we can scale the technology to automate it a little bit more, but I never want to lose that touch. I mean, we've got over 80 brands signed up and synced up selling on the marketplace. And, all of those people are in my phone. We're on a first name basis. We text, we call, we do different things like that all the time. So I never want to lose that. I mean, for a bunch of reasons we can get into later, but that's how we're doing it right now. We're getting to know people face to face.
So So are there a couple of stories? Is there one, I don't know, one of your vendors that kind of stands out that we could share with our listeners and tell that story?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a bunch. I mean,
Don't want to leave anybody out, but we.
yeah, that's the challenge, right? The first thing that comes to mind, I think the coolest thing that I was most blown away with, there's a guy named Jesse, and his company is Tinker Audio. And what's crazy about what he does, he's a woodworker like me. So I kind of, I've got that
Got the
kind
connection.
of, Jesse makes these really cool vintage looking stereos. They're wood. They look like something, mid-century American type thing. They're really cool. And the designs are all over the place. He's got, red, white, and blue ones he makes out of skateboards. They're really cool. But what's interesting is the technology behind it. So it looks like, it's got like a leather strap handle. It looks like an old radio you would have somewhere like before TVs. But on the inside, it's modern audio equipment and Bluetooth. They're Bluetooth speakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can put Alexa into these things. So you can just like yell at it to play your favorite song and it'll do it. You can control it with your phone. And the amount of craftsmanship that, they're not cheap, right? But, think about what you're getting. These are handmade in Texas. The craftsmanship that goes into these is unbelievable. It's, you're never going to find anything like this on Best Buy or anything like that. And that's one thing that comes to mind, just because the amount of, it's not something you can mass produce. And the quality, I think it really signifies the labor of love that not only he puts into what he does, but what I'm seeing across the board with a lot of our vendors. Even if we've got a guy that makes blue jeans, Trinidad 3 jeans in LA. And you got to think, man, you're hand cut and sewing blue jeans in Los Angeles, not just in America, but in Los Angeles. And these things are affordable, and the quality is better than what the mass produced stuff. And I just think those stories are really indicative of what we're seeing across the platform.
Honor, duty, service. At the Veteran Crowd Network, we're focused on our next mission, bringing veterans, veteran-operated businesses, and veteran service organizations together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. That's why we are launching the Veteran Crowd Rewards Program, exclusively for our individual and corporate members. Now you can save on travel, restaurants, goods, and services from brands you trust online and at over 900,000 locations nationwide. Find out more today at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. If you are a veteran-operated business, or a VSO, consider the connections, the network, the benefits, the engagement, and success of working with other veterans again. The Veteran Crowd Network, you paid a lot of dues to join this club.
You're listening to the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. My guest is Drew Everett, co-founder of Apex Gear Company. Drew, when you look back on this exercise and becoming an entrepreneur, how do you think your military experience and Nick's military experience have helped you along the pathway here?
Yeah, one thing he said to me that I'll probably never forget is when we were doing this, even in the early days before it was marketplace, he said something about we didn't know what we didn't know, or we didn't know what we were. It was something about, not that we were too stupid to not take the challenge, but we had never built a website before, right? We had never, there's all these things. And I don't know if it's like mystery runs in the military or just the different types of things that you do that get your brain kind of prepared for, okay, you're going to go do this thing and it'll be over when it's over. And what you do along the way is what needs to be done along the way. And because we talk to people about how this got started all the time. And, we hear like, oh man, that's crazy. There's no way I would never be able to, or, I could even imagine how you have to learn to do whatever, right? And there's probably a lot of truth to that. We didn't know the mountain that we were climbing from a skill standpoint or a time standpoint or whatever, but we knew it was, a goal worth accomplishing. We wanted to do it. We were fired up to do it. And so we jumped in and we figured it out. And I think there's something there to that around, don't, not being overwhelmed or intimidated by some task or challenge that you might not be familiar with or might seem insurmountable. Just start,
just keep going at it.
Yeah, just keep going at it. I mean, the important thing is to take the first step, right? Wake up, get out of bed, put the boots on, put the ruck on, show up the formation, and now eventually you're 10 miles into the thing, so
making progress.
That always stuck with me.
I had an analogy, somebody told me years ago, your headlights don't shine all the way to your destination, but you still drive at night, right? So
that's very good. I like that.
It's just one of those things. It's just great advice. You got to get started. I would have never had this podcast. I had no idea what I was getting into. And now we're on, episode 140 something. We've kind of learned along the way. The good thing was in the beginning when I didn't know what I was doing, nobody was listening anyway. So, but that's kind of the fun thing about it. So where do you think you're going with the business? Let me take one step back. What is the one thing that changed about the business so drastically from your original vision? And we talked about the orthotics and thinking about that, but has there been just one, sea change idea that maybe sits out, or was it a bunch of just little things as you went along?
Yeah, I think it's been a bunch of little things as we've gone along. I mean, the sea change is really in the retrospective when we look back. There was this kind of light bulb moment, this epiphany of, we're trying to solve for this one little challenge of workflows and payment flows and all that kind of stuff and order notifications in this one scenario. And then we had this light bulb moment of, I don't know, maybe it was just thinking about how does that scale up? And then that kind of light bulb went off on, well, how's it scale up from one veteran-owned product to 2 to 3? Well, then it goes to all, right? And so, there was that, I mean, the sea change was definitely about how we had to rewrite and rebuild and redeploy, not only our website and the front end, the customer experiences, but the entire tech stack. I mean, we had to reevaluate everything that goes into making it work. It's definitely night and day from where we started, but I don't think I can put outside of that kind of that, early morning light bulb, moment. I can't really identify a huge sea change. We're constantly thinking of how we can expand. We've got to get the fundamentals right first. So there's a lot of things that we've been operating in the marketplace we launched on September 11th of 21. So we've been operating the marketplace for less than 4 months. So there's a lot of basics that we need to get really good at, and we need to increase the catalog. And I think from there we can look at how can we grow it to appeal to more customers.
You remind me of a book I read a couple of years ago called The New Economy Thinker, and it's rather than be a manufacturing place and produce all the orthotics and have 100% of that business, why not have a little percent of a whole lot of businesses and bring them together? And that sounds exactly like the business model that you and Nick have developed. So I go back to that particular theme, and so you're 6 months really into the launch of the business itself. You've probably learned more from the failures than you have from the successes, right?
Yeah. How far do you want me to go into that?
Oh, let's talk about it. I mean, I think, admission is good for the soul. One of the biggest things that happened to me that got me into a career being in finance and so forth was getting fired And so in the dark days of, losing a job and coming home and telling my wife, hey, you know what, they don't want me anymore. But that actually set us on a path that's turned out to be a good thing. So failure is good, isn't it? We got to embrace it. We got to get taught that in the military.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's, I do this in my personal life, which is probably why it happened in business, but something that, and I'm doing less of it now. I'm 37. I've got 3 kids. I'm doing less of it now, but my parents, they never did this. And it was just because you're not using something doesn't mean you need to throw it out.
Mhm.
I mean, put it in a box, maybe you throw it out eventually, but you don't have to make the decision right now today. And that kind of dovetails into a broader lesson is, not every decision has to be made immediately. And that's a good thing, right? That gives you a tactical advantage. So, I mean, there's little things like we've had domain names that we liked early on, but fell out of love with, and then scrapped them. And then you go, and then you want them back later, but then they're not available. There's things like that, a real kick in the pants. There's branding and logo design. So right now, if anybody goes to any of our social media, they're just going to see an American flag for an icon on across the board on everything. So that's something that we're currently in the midst of.
Is there a story behind picking Apex Gear as the name of the company?
There is a long circuitous story it's probably not worth getting into now. It's honestly not that interesting, but it's just the result of whittling down and brainstorming and just doing different iterations on designs and names and stuff. But a logo that we had for a long time that I actually did a lot of research on. So another big lesson is you're never done researching. Like if you think you've got the answer, just maybe you do, okay, but just do a little bit more. We got a cease and desist from Electronic Arts, the video game company, EA, for using a symbol that they created for a video game as our logo, and we had no idea. And we were very confident that we weren't, because I'd done a lot of research on the origins of the symbol and what it meant, and it fit with our brand and all that stuff. And there's other websites, right? There's other and that's the thing. I mean, where are these websites that you're using for your source material? Where are they getting their information, right? So that whole experience was really interesting. It kind of made me just want to go to a damn library, like what can you trust these days? And so it was interesting. So we're kind of back to the drawing board on how we represent ourselves in that way. But but it's, anyways, to answer your question about Apex, Apex simply means the peak or the pinnacle, right? The top of the best. And so it's synonymous with like the peak of a mountain. So that's kind of how we viewed the marketplace. It was a place that customers could feel good about their purchase and what they're buying, a place to find unique stuff you're not going to find anywhere else. And we wanted to kind of bring all those things together into one spot, and really kind of give an option to people in the market that maybe maybe they're fed up with the status quo in online shopping, right? It could be cheap quality stuff. It might be from overseas. It might not last long. They don't, who's the seller, like all this kind of stuff, right? People want to support veteran businesses and veteran brands. It's hard to do that because you don't really know what all ones there are out there. And there's some big ones that do a lot of advertising and they have good brand recognition. For every Black Rifle coffee in the world, there's 5,000 other companies, right? There's probably 500 other coffee, veteran-owned coffee companies. And I'm with you. I mean, people don't want to do research. I get it. You don't want to take the time to dig stuff up. Then you have to trust it, right? So, and I get all that. I get it. So what we want to do is we want to offer an experience that they can have confidence in. If something goes wrong with the purchase, we have their back. A transaction they can feel good about, something that's very shareable because it's unique and there's a good story behind it. So that's kind of where Apex came into from a name standpoint. We felt that best, it's simple. It best represented all the tenets that we're trying to huddle together in the offering. So,
quick question: did you get a lot of traction and exposure and engagement through various social media platforms? How are you getting the word out?
Yeah, so this is a good story for the power of the Veteran Network, and it's like a weird ticky-tacky phrase, but I'll give you an example. So we did a podcast for the product business, the insole business, 2 years ago. We did a podcast on what used to be called the Veteran-Owned Collective, and there's a lady named Katie. She was a Marine vet. She ran this thing, and we were circling back with her with this new opportunity. And a lot of this had to do with COVID and other things like that. But in the time that we had done the podcast and we'd circled back with her, the VOC, the Veteran Owned Collective, had kind of fizzled out. She hadn't posted in 6 months. She hadn't done any interviews or anything like that. And she wasn't really sure what to do with it. She loved our idea. And she had some experience with people that had tried to do similar things in the past and what those lessons were. So she was a great sounding board for what we were trying to do. And at the end of the conversation, she said, "Hey, I've got an Instagram account with 8,000 followers on it. Most of them are veteran-owned business owners. Why don't you just take that over and rebrand it and start here instead of starting here?" And that was huge. And that would have never happened if I honestly think if she wasn't a veteran, that probably wouldn't have happened. But two, if she wasn't doing what she was doing with trying to bring veteran-owned business owners together. And three, you just have to reach out. Like my dad always said, you don't know unless you ask, right?
This is a huge challenge because we've been trying through our network to bring veteran-owned businesses together with each other and the resources to help them prosper. And you just, these people just you don't wear it on your sleeve, right?
Right.
And so,
exactly.
So we're hard to find.
And you know what? I had a job at Stanley Black & Decker, and one of them was, it was the veteran. We're creating from the ground up a veterans network. It's like an affinity group that corporations will do to try to, boost morale and increase retention and stuff. It's a way to feel good about, where you're working and all that stuff. And what we learned was, we put on so many programs, we traveled, we did all these things. And what I learned was, veterans, so we're vets, right? We have the Veteran Network. We're out there trying to do the same thing for other people, whether they're employees or outside the company. And what we learned is no veteran wants to like be the recipient of the help, but all veterans want to go help other veterans, or they want to go out in the community, they want to do stuff, right? But none of them want to like be on the receiving end of it. It's like, listen, guys, at the end of the day, somebody's got to get the help. like there's got to be a circle here going. And but yeah, you don't know unless you ask, right? It doesn't matter if you're making a sales call to a huge company or trying to get a huge account, or you're trying to, whatever you're trying to do in your business or your life, it might feel like the answer is going to be no, but you got to let people surprise you, and you got to leave room for that. And you're not going to know unless you ask. And the worst case scenario, they say no. And guess what? You're already not doing business with them anyway before you pick up the phone. Right. So what difference does it make? So,
doesn't matter.
So that's the lesson there. And she came out with that and gave us a huge boost. And that's been key. And then the other key is making original content that people like. So like what you're doing. And, Nick went to film school and he's got that background. And so we've been blessed to be able to make some really funny, we have it's a sense of humor. So we make these funny commercials and we put them out, and we try to promote not only the marketplace, like, hey, there's another option in the world, but also look at some of the cool stuff you're going to find, So that's kind of our two-pronged approach. We're networking like crazy, and we're putting out, original stuff. So
my guest has been Drew Everett, one of the co-founders of Apex Gear Company. Drew, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook, Apex Gear Company. We've got our contact info in the boilerplate of apexgearcompany.com. You can also go to the veteranmarketplace.com. They'll take you to the same spot, but if you hit the contact button, that'll come to the team and we'll get to you.
I'll encourage everybody to follow Apex Gear Company. We're going to put links to all of that in the show notes for this episode. Drew, thank you. We're out of time. This happens all the way. It goes back quickly.
I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me, Bob. Really appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Spotlight on the VeteranCrowd Network. Our guest again has been Drew Everett, co-founder of Apex Gear Company, a marketplace where made by veterans for everyone. So I'd encourage you to go out there and check out their products. Really great things that are out there. Drew, I'll throw out an Army Bravo Zulu to you for today's performance. You can pass that along to your Marine Corps buddy, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by VeteranCrowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. We'll see you next time.